e tudo. Sentimento bom que me leva pro outro mundo. A vontade de te ver já é maior que tudo. Não existem distâncias no meu novo mundo, tipo coisas da sétima.
We're here, big episode 52, Clint Cronin show. I'm here with Bay Area Strong, Nathan Mendelsohn from Santa Cruz, California, man. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Hey, and also thanks for the hospitality. It's a beautiful academy and a beautiful city. We're here in Santa Cruz, California. Perfect day in the world. I haven't seen outside of these four walls besides the beach over there, but everything looks pretty damn good to me.
Yeah.
So what's been new, man? You've been hitting the competition scene strong as usual?
Yeah. Lately, my goal has just been to try to compete as much as possible and get my rhythm going as much as I can. You know, I didn't get the result that I wanted at Worlds this year, so I decided, that I needed to start my training for Worlds 2018 that following week and just try to keep the same rhythm going all the way until the Worlds next year, instead of a lot of people take a break after Worlds and stuff. I was competing the following weekend and then 2 weekends after that and then again and again and again. And, I don't want to take a break until I'm where I want to be,
Yeah, man, your competition record, you're out there, you're tenacious. It's everybody knows it's actually really awesome for me to be here as well. I really like to spend a lot of time with Bay Area athletes, and for you spend so much time representing the Bay Area as not just in the IBJJF scene, but in BJJ Tour as well, which is kind of like a Bay Area / Brazil homegrown thing.
Totally.
So it's very cool to be able to sit down with you. I've seen you compete 1,000 times. We've had 100 mutual friends, but to actually get in here, it's pretty cool. You start realizing like how few actual people like you don't know in the BJJ scene. You're like,
yeah, right.
There's how many 1 degree of separation?
1 degree of separation.
Everybody. like between me and like Anthony Bourdain, there's like one dude.
Yeah, totally.
It's ridiculous.
It's funny. It's still like a small community. As much as it grows, it still feels small. It's like surfing in the 50s where like you would see somebody with surf racks on their car and you'd like pull over on the side of the road and like, whoa, you surf? Like nowadays people, it's like so big that it's not like a thing anymore. But now you see like it's still like you see a jiu-jitsu sticker on somebody's car, you're like, oh, that guy understands me. He knows where I'm coming from.
Oh, it's the trippiest thing. I got stopped at the Atlanta airport on my way back from Miami, and the guy is holding his ear in one of the little gift shops, where you go to overpay for a water or whatever, and he's holding his ear, and I'm like, where's this guy's handler? Like, what is this? Like, I was getting kind of weirded out, like this guy's getting kind of close, and he knew my podcast from jiu-jitsu. And
no way, that's awesome.
I was like, he's like, I listen to your podcast. I was like, why?
That's killer.
Joe Rogan's so much better.
No way, dude. Joe Rogan ain't got nothing on this.
Exactly. Well, like, I bet I love Joe Rogan, but
I do too.
He ain't in Santa Cruz right now,
right?
So that's what's up. Man, so unlike a lot of guys in the Bay Area, you're an American dude, but you see you walking around at tournaments and you speak fluent Portuguese. So you spent a lot of time in Brazil training as well. How did that start out, and kind of what's your experience been like your first time down there, for example?
Well, my first time down there, I was 17, and I went to stay with Paul Schreiner. He's one of our black belts. He got his black belt here. Now he teaches for Marcelo, but he was a brown belt at the time, and I was a blue belt. And I went to stay with him, and there was a couple other guys from here down there. So that was a fun experience. We trained at Gordo's, and I got the Brazil experience, but I was hanging with mostly Americans and stuff, so I didn't really learn much Portuguese. That was the only time I ever did a Portuguese lesson, formally a lesson, was with Dennis Ash, and he gave me 2 private lessons, and I started learning certain things like how to say bathroom and this and that, but I never really got a chance to practice it all that much. But then in the future, I started going back more and more, and really I learned more of my Portuguese here in the States than I did there. People seem to think oh, you speak really well, you probably spent a lot of time down there. I've been 7 different times, but one time I went for 3 weeks, another time I went for 3 weeks, a couple times I went for a month. The longest I ever went for was 2 months. So I never spent a long extended period of time there, but there was a long time where I had a lot of Brazilians living at my house, and it was kind of a way for me to keep good training. Claudio would bring out Brazilian instructors to teach in his place, and they would stay at my house. And so they didn't speak a lot of English, and I knew a little bit of Portuguese, and my parents didn't speak any Portuguese. So through that is where mostly I learned my Portuguese, was over that time. Like I would go every year to Brazil for like a month, but then the other 11 months there was some Brazilian at my house that I was like practicing with. So it was like 3 or 4 years where I was constantly able to practice. And now I have like not all my friends, but most of my friends that I hang out with on a daily basis are all Brazilian. My girlfriend's Brazilian. And so I end up speaking like Portuguese all the time. So I'm able to keep up on it.
Yeah, I found that when I would actually be in Brazil or be around Brazilian people is the only time I would actually pick up or actually develop on it. Otherwise, you come back to the Bay Area, even though you're trying to learn it, if you're not using, if there's no necessity, like if you're not looking for a bathroom, if you're not looking for a restaurant or a pharmacy or something, it's without the necessity, it's hard. I mean, I was even going to the one Portuguese church in San Jose, the Five Wounds Church.
Oh, wow.
I was doing the Sunday service in Portuguese instead of English. I used to go with my ex all the time because like she wanted to go to church. I was like, all right. Then she wanted to go to the Brazilian church. Like, okay, that's cool. I'll learn. And that was harder because I wasn't as interested, which sounds bad. Like, but with like jiu-jitsu helped. Doing like jiu-jitsu classes in Brazil helped me learn.
Definitely.
Because in Goiânia, there's no English speaking jiu-jitsu class. Like that's not a thing.
Yeah. If you can take a Portuguese class every single day, but if you're living in the States, then the other, if it's an hour-long class, the other 23 hours of the day, you're not practicing, so you have to be in a situation where you at least have the opportunity to be practicing it all the time, and if you take that, like you take a class in Brazil, then at least when you leave the class, you're still practicing all the time, and a lot of people, it's kind of like jiu-jitsu where like learning a language, I feel like is kind of like jiu-jitsu where when you start as a white belt, it just seems so like overwhelming. There's so much stuff that you have to learn that most people just kind of check out, or maybe they try and they get to a certain point and then they just like give up. You see like a lot of people in English are that way. They don't keep trying to perfect their accent or learn better. They get to a certain level of English and then that's it. And a lot of people are like that with Portuguese too. They get to a certain level of Portuguese and then they don't keep going. I always tried to keep improving. I still like constantly trying to improve. I'll notice when I'm saying things wrong, and sometimes people don't want to correct me because I think that I'll get like, bummed out or something. But I'm like, dude, you guys got to correct me. If I keep saying something wrong all the time, let me know.
Yeah, I know it goes the same way with when people come to the United States. They have an accent, or they speak in broken English, or either Spanglish or whatever. And when we as Americans speak broken English back to them because we think it's somehow helping them, but
my dad does that.
It's totally the wrong thing to do. It's kind of offensive, right? But it's counterproductive too, because then you wind up being the one random white guy or American guy that just talks kind of stupid at tournaments and stuff.
My dad used to do that to the guys that would come. I'm like, Dad, you're not helping them by trying to speak in a Brazilian accent. Like, just speak normal so that they can learn how to speak it the right way.
I used to break my friend's balls. He owns an English school or a language school in Goiânia. He's an American dude, ex-military, really cool guy. But he would start speaking English to people, and he sounded like what was the mouse, Speedy Gonzalez? He would do like the Speedy Gonzalez accent in English. And it's this really large white man, and I'm like, you gotta stop talking like that. You're from Philadelphia, sir.
You mean like when he would come back here?
We would be there and he'd be talking to me and my ex-wife, but he would talk to her in the Speedy Gonzalez voice in English. And I'm like, it's not helping, sir. It's just weird.
One thing that'll happen to me is like I'll be speaking so much Portuguese that sometimes I'll think in Portuguese, or like there'll be a sentence that I want to say that really makes sense in Portuguese, and then like I'll try to say it in English, and then it like just won't quite translate right, and then I'm like, just sounds stupid. I'm like getting tripped up in my own language.
Yeah, for a white guy to go to Brazil to learn Portuguese for the first few years, be prepared to like be thought of as illiterate in 2 languages.
Oh yeah,
like people just think. I assume people out there thought I was just the dumbest person ever. Because I was, I had the equivalent of baby talk.
Yeah, totally.
Right? And so it's kind of, you get kind of shy about it, but yeah, you have to just kind of pick your battles and try. I just went off on my own a lot. Like, I'm going to go rent a car today. What are you talking about? I'm going to rent a car. We don't need a car. Like, I want to rent a car as an adult in this language. Like, I want to know how to do that. So
yeah, and there's different people. Like I've had people come and stay at my house, and they want me to take them everywhere. They want me to order for them at McDonald's and they want me to do whatever, you know, and then they just don't end up really learning, you know. And then there's other people that come and right away Santa Cruz is so small and safe and everything that if you get a bike and you just start going, you can go from one side of Santa Cruz to the other in an hour on your bike, you know. And so then they start going out making friends and then they start learning and they've been there for a couple months and then they're already speaking well. And, you know, that's how you got to do it. You got to, you know, you can't get too scared and stuck in your own bubble, you know?
Yeah, it's fortune favors the brave, man. You got to put yourself out there. And, you know, if you sort of just hide in your own bubble, like that language is never going to develop and it's always going to be like an insecurity or whatever. And it's a legitimate one.
Totally.
Like, you need that language. It's like, I don't know. I think there's like basic skills everyone needs. If you're in a country, you got to speak the languages.
Yep.
I think everybody needs to learn how to swim. Like I meet so many adults who don't know how to learn to swim.
I was just thinking about that the other day. I forget what situation I was in. Oh, I think it was when we were going on a boat cruise out here, and I was just like thinking, like, yeah, there's like actually adult people that don't know how to swim.
A lot.
I'm like,
there's a lot.
Yeah, that's crazy. I guess if you live in a certain place where it's not like here. You know, when you're like 6 years old, you start in junior lifeguards and then they have you go and swim out around the buoy and you learn how to swim in the ocean and, you know, and then you're surfing and then we do water polo. And so it's just like something that's natural for us here, you know, so it's weird to think of like, but I guess maybe if you live in a place that's farther from the ocean, it's maybe not as essential to know or something, I guess, or people don't realize or.
I think for everyone, it's essential to know. I think there's always a situation where it can be a danger or a hazard. Like, yeah. If you're going to be an adult, you're going to have kids someday. Oh, the kid's in the pool. Fuck, I don't know.
Find somebody that can swim.
Guess that was the kid.
At least we can have another one.
Exactly. Well, yeah, no one has forgotten how to do that. So there's way too many people in the world.
Yeah, seriously, right?
So, man, I caught you lately on Facebook, man. You've been doing the Sunday rhymes.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, uh-oh. And I'm being real here because I've seen other jiu-jitsu people venture into music and it doesn't always go that well.
Right.
And then I got halfway through yours and you're back and forth between English and Portuguese and I was like, Jesus, he's good. He's actually good. I was like, this is actually a good song. I wasn't expecting it to be good.
Oh, thank you.
I was like, more jiu-jitsu music because I'm like,
right.
There's, you know, the
G and the gi. I think anyone that does jiu-jitsu that's going to do music from now into eternity is going to be haunted by the G and the gi.
The G and the gi, for the production they put into that video, and, you know, it was cool. There's people rolling around and stuff, and then you hear the words. And there's a disconnect, and he's probably a cool guy. I've never met him.
Yeah.
But I just didn't like his song that much.
No, well, it's bad. It's like at least he you know if you want to do something, it's good that you want to do it in high quality and invest some money into it and stuff and all of that. But if you don't have the skills to do it, then you just don't. For me, it's like doing hip hop and stuff, and I produce music and stuff too, and it's just been something that I've always done since I started jiu-jitsu. Like I've been doing it that long, and people always like, oh, you're white, or you're this or you're that, and for me it's just something that it's like really therapeutic for me, so I never really cared if anyone liked it or not really. It's just like something that I'm just never gonna stop doing, and for me it's just like with hip hop music too, people think that there's a certain kind of subject matter that has to be spoke about in hip hop, or that you have to be a certain skin color or this and that. And it's just like anything else, you don't have to be a certain skin color to play the guitar. You don't have to be or born in a certain place or anything, It's just the problem is that people think that a certain kind of subject matter has to be in hip hop. So people that aren't from that want to talk like they're gangster or whatever and stuff like that. So you see, the best kind of hip hop is when you're being, true to yourself and it's an honest expression, So for me, I like to talk about jiu-jitsu because I know that people like to hear that, So it's kind of cool for them. It's like, oh, it's a jiu-jitsu like rhyme in Portuguese and English and whatever. And so that's the kind of stuff that I've been putting out now. But when I write my music, I just try to make it true to myself, and it's more just like a personal thing for me anyway. So, and I'm glad that people have been liking it lately too. So that's even better.
I didn't realize that you were that big into hip hop. Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, oh, all right. No, this is the thing. Like he's clearly been doing this for a while, or he's good at this. It's cool. Like, what are some of your influence? Are you more like an East Coast rap guy, or like a West Coast, or just any specific hip hop artists in general influence you?
Yeah, I just like I said, I really like the kind of artists that are like really, you feel kind of like you know them when you listen to their music. So that, I think those are the kinds of people that resonate, like the kind of artists that resonate the most with listeners. So, you know, like Tupac, for example, you know, people really like Tupac because it wasn't just random words that he was saying. It was more like he was really like expressing something that meant something to him, you know. And same with like an Eminem. Like, it's like you knew who Eminem's mom was, you knew who his daughter was, you knew what he was going through at that time in his life. And, you know, he was really true to himself. Like, where he came as a white guy, he wasn't going to say, you know, like, I'm a drug dealer and a gangster and I'm a this and a that. It's like he couldn't be that, you know, but he could be the craziest guy. He was the white guy that got picked on by all the black kids at school. And so that's what came out into his rhymes, you know, and he was really personal and really serious, you know. So that's the kind of like rhymes that I want. For me, it's not so much like West Coast versus East Coast, but, you know, I like everything. You know, I'm really big fan of Wu-Tang Clan. I got to see Raekwon in Santa Cruz here a couple weeks ago. I actually got to meet him after. It was really cool because like after the show, he stayed and met everyone that wanted to meet him and signed his CD. And I got his new CD. And if you haven't seen the new Raekwon CD, pick it up because it's really sick. He's got like some good features with G-Eazy on there and CeeLo, and that's a sick new
crazy
album. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been around forever, man. I grew up in New Jersey. I was a big fan of like all the Mobb Deep and Wu-Tang Clan and all that stuff, of Biggie. Mm-hmm. But we had Tupac on the radio too, and I mean Snoop and all that stuff as well. And I got a little bit older, and stuff like was Living Legends. Oh yeah, Living Legends. Stuff like that's really cool.
Merce and the Grouch, Dilated Peoples, yeah.
I've seen Grouch live once, long time ago, I think in Texas. And then, who was it? Was it Living Legends? No, Dilated Peoples I saw in New York.
Oh, nice.
And that was an awesome show. So he was able to like just kind of go off and just flow on any topic. He would just have people hold up stuff in the crowd, and he was able to just go from thing to thing. And like he went for like 20 minutes like that, just like just big long rhymes, crazy.
Mm-hmm. Atmosphere is awesome. It's a new guy that's kind of funny is Lil Dicky. He's funny because he's a good rapper, you know. That's the thing. Like he makes these funny things, but he raps good, you know. It's like you don't necessarily just like him because he's funny. I usually don't like comedic hip hop. Like I don't like it when it's not being serious. Like any kind of music that's just like a parody I don't dig, but he makes like a parody in a really intelligent way, and his lyrics are really good, you know. So he's found a way to find his own niche where he doesn't try to be like a gangster or try to be anything. He's funny and he's clever, you know.
Oh, that's the YouTuber, like the nerdy one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've heard him. Cool.
And it's cool because nowadays if you make something that's good, you know, you don't have to have the support or backing of a label or anything. If you want to invest in a good camera and you have a good idea and you make it, that's the cool thing with the internet now is like he just kind of started off of YouTube and then he got a Kickstarter and people believed in him and they started investing, and then you know, so that's kind of cool, like the opportunities nowadays that the internet provides.
Yeah, you just actually put out a project on YouTube recently, the Jiu Jitsu Lifestyle one, huh?
Yeah.
So that was cool. Was that a collaboration? Was that a Coalition 95 thing, or like what was the basis of that one?
That was an idea that I had, and we have one of our students, Daniel Caratoni. He does the filming for the BJJ tour, and he does a lot of filming for CrossFit and stuff like that. So, and he's got the drone and all that. So, and he's a friend of mine. So he gave me a good kind of bro deal on the video and everything. And I knew it was going to be really pro. So it was like I was saying, if you want to do something, it's like you know, you got to invest. Like we were just talking about this before, and you got to invest in the right equipment. You got to do it the right way, you know? So I like to make videos and stuff and edit videos, but I know the difference between, you know, it's just like Daniel says sometimes everybody thinks they're a jiu-jitsu instructor now. You know, it's like you train a couple years, you think you can teach jiu-jitsu, but there's a difference between me editing videos and Daniel editing videos, you know? So it's like, if I really want to do it, you know, I'm going to invest some money in it. And he actually had a good idea with it. You know, my idea was I just wanted to pay him to do like a really good highlight video, like take videos that I had, because I pretty much archive all of my fights. I have like every tournament I've done since my last year as a brown belt, I have organized into folders and stuff. So I wanted to just shoot him a bunch of like filming from the travels and everything. I had this idea, like I want to have more content for jiu-jitsu practitioners to watch that's more based around the lifestyle. So not only instructionals, and I get bored with instructionals. I don't want to see like instructionals all the time. Like I like instructionals too, but that's not the only thing. And I don't think that's why most people are into jiu-jitsu or only watching competition footage. It's like you see surfing videos. There's a lot of surfing, but there's also a lot of the lifestyle side of it. There's a lot of, traveling and all that. And that's part of what's cool about jiu-jitsu, like going to Japan and going to Abu Dhabi and all this stuff. So I wanted him to kind of do like a video that was, infusing the competition footage with the lifestyle. And I was thinking more like the traveling and stuff, but he had this idea of why don't we film it in Santa Cruz and do like a day in your life, like waking up in the morning. And he had the mats. He's like, we could do it like a surf thing where you're showing up to the place, then you roll out the mats. And that was all kind of his idea. And then it turned out really good. The day that we went to film, there was some waves coming in and everything ended up just kind of working out really well. And people have been enjoying the video. So
yeah, it's very cool. It's very, very well produced. It has a pretty, has a little soundtrack behind it. Sort of shows you guys go out to the beach, you like roll out some mats like right on the sand. That was pretty sick.
Yeah.
I'm like, does he really train like that? Is he really going to the beach and training? I want to see the beach mats. It's cool.
Right.
It's basically a short film because I was waiting for the hook, the commercial part, and it wasn't. It was just, this is Jiu Jitsu Lifestyle. It was cool.
Yeah.
Man, you mentioned the folders, and I heard you on a podcast a while back talk about like how you would sort of look at what your mindset before the tournament and then reflect on it afterwards. Like you took some pretty detailed notes. Were those video journals you were doing to sort of these plan and like post-mortem type deals? Like how did that go? Like what was the structure of that?
Yeah, I had this original, well, first, like my last year as brown belt, I decided I was going to win everything. Like it was my year where I was just going to win pans and worlds and all this. And then at the end of the year, I was going to
go Keenan Cornelius, that shit.
Yeah. And then I was just going to edit together this super cool video of like how it went down. And then like that didn't happen. So I just kind of kept going with the same thing, like until I win the worlds, and then hopefully I'll be able to make a video going back from then till then. But my idea was just like, do, and also not just for the video, but also just to be able to look back, do like a before testimonial and an after testimonial. And then that way I can go and see, this is what I thought I was going to do, or this is how I performed or how I trained beforehand. And then afterward, how I actually performed and how those expectations actually panned out and everything. And I've still been doing that. I've been competing so much that sometimes I don't get one right before everyone and right after everyone, but I do as best as I can to like, okay, I'm going to this tournament. And then, the next week I'll get one in. So I make sure to check in like as much as I can. And yeah, they're all videos. So I have like video testimonials from 6 years ago up until now.
Do you ever go back to like really old ones and kind of look at mindset, like where you were then versus kind of now, and like, just sort of like, what was I even thinking? Or
I do totally. Yeah. Sometimes I'll go back and look at ones, after like or before like a bad performance or something. And then I like look into it and see like if I really look confident or not. It's kind of, the before one's kind of hard because you're afraid of like being too honest beforehand too. Like if you didn't train very well, you don't want to like say that before the tournament because
you're projecting already that negative thing out there. Like it's exactly. Like self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you want to be super positive and stuff. Exactly. It's affirmations.
Yeah, exactly. I use a lot of affirmations and mantras and stuff, but I also go back before good ones and try to think, like sometimes I also try to include what my training looked like, what more the emphasis was on. Like sometimes I'll, there was a certain span of time where I was like, felt like I was behind a little bit physically for my weight class. So I was trying to focus on like a lot of weightlifting and stuff. And then I realized like when a lot of my good performances happened, it was when I was focusing more on like having really good, hard jiu-jitsu training with like other high level athletes. And then I did this recently. I went back and looked at some of my good performances, and in almost all of them, I had been mentioning how I'd been training with this guy or training with that guy, or, Keishinho or Yuri or whoever it was at the time. And, that's like what I found really leads to like a good performance a lot, is remembering, kind of the Marcelo Garcia idea of like, if you're going to compete in jiu-jitsu, you should really be putting a lot of your energy into training jiu-jitsu,
Yeah, it's really hard to get sort of stuck staring at that weight category. Like, I don't know, I'd almost rather fall in the middle of two categories and just have solid training and feel good than be trying to chase like the upper part or the lower part of because it's kind of easy to fall in the middle. Like, where do I fit? Then you're looking at the brackets, and a lot of guys are like, well, there's more guys over here, there's more guys over here, and who's in here? Like, guys will game their weight and even age division around who's in the brackets and stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's like, it's kind of, I don't know, it's one way to like psych yourself out.
Exactly.
Versus like just finding better training partners and like pushing yourself and getting out there.
Yeah, you don't want to move around too much. Like, I was doing that before, where I was kind of like, I would gain a lot of weight because I would just relax on my diet. So then I was fighting at like light heavyweight, which I'm not a light heavyweight, but I think I competed more last year at light heavyweight than anything else. And then, sometimes there'd only be like two guys in super heavyweight. So I just fight at super heavyweight. And then my master's like, your goal is to be world champion at middleweight. So you should just be fighting middleweight all the time. It doesn't matter if there's only one guy in light heavyweight and six guys in middleweight. Just fight middleweight, because that's what you're fighting for, what you're planning for, And Josh Hinger, he wrote like a thing about losing, like cutting weight for jiu-jitsu, and how he's against cutting weight for jiu-jitsu. And I really agree with him on that point, where like, it's the way that we weigh right before we compete is meant to keep you from these like really gnarly weight cuts that you see in MMA, where like a couple people die a year in MMA from just like dropping weight the wrong way, and cutting weight the wrong way. And jiu-jitsu is not made for that. And some people will see that and they take it as like, that just means eat however you want and fight whatever you weigh, and that's not what it is. It's like, you see like a guy like me or Josh or different guys where we're not cutting a ton of weight the week of the tournament. Like, I'm pretty much nowadays trying to just eat a consistent diet and pretty much be like 3 or 4 pounds at the most over my weight class. And then I adjust my diet even more like 2 weeks beforehand, so that I show up underweight and everything. And that's being lean, so there's a difference between losing weight and cutting weight. If you're fighting it, if you have the musculature and the size to be a middleweight, but you're overweight, so you're fighting super heavyweight, you're going to fight a guy that's lean at super heavyweight and you're going to get in trouble, so you need to be honest with yourself and look at your body and say, am I losing weight or am I cutting weight? And everybody's different too, because there's certain people that aren't lean and they can still have gas and explosion and whatever. You need to look at your own body type. Some people are more predisposed to just be a little more chubby, but you need to find what that weight class is for you and then try to maintain. Like, I've been finding consistency is the biggest thing. Like, thing that's been holding me back the last couple of years, I think, was too much like up and down, like be really focused and then fall off, like be weighing this and then be weighing this and then be weighing this and be weighing this. It's better to just find something that you can be consistent, so that you're used to training at that weight. If you're dropping so much, then you go to fight at a weight that you haven't weighed or trained in all year long. Like, for example, you drop an extra weight class for Worlds, you've never weighed that. If you haven't weighed that exact weight all year round, how are you going to know how you're going to feel? It's better to be like training for a month at that weight before, and then,
Oh yeah. I feel like you can do all the work you want in the gym and, and lifting and eating to gain weight or lose weight, but you have to kind of learn how to fit into that body. You have to learn how to carry that, because your strength isn't the same. Your speed isn't the same. Your body dimensions aren't even the same. So like, if you wanted to even go up in weight, which a lot of guys do as they get a little older, it's like they're just kind of getting fatter and like lifting and getting slower, and then they're surprised when the gas tank isn't there to back them up. It's
Totally.
You see like names that were like, big in the adult division, then like a year goes by, you're like, why are they in masters already? Like they were killing it, but like, oh, it's the fat version of that guy. And I'm not trying to be offensive or like I'll never name names like that, but like you see it a lot, and
yeah,
it's just I don't think that's what masters is for necessarily, but
yeah, the metabolism doesn't hold up quite as much as
for sure it doesn't.
But I noticed that if I'm eating like pretty well the majority of the time, like even last weekend, the weekend before this last one, I had like chocolate and I went to the movies like a couple times. Like, that's one of my favorite things, is going to the movies. And I had like some like popcorn and stuff. And I was like afraid that I was going to, I was like, oh, maybe I overdid it a little bit. And then I went and just trained hard a couple of days, and I was already right back to where I was. Like the problem's if you go for a week or two and you stop training and then you let your body start to get used to that, like, and really store that fat, and then you have a hard time getting down. But if I found that if I'm consistent the majority of the time, I can allow myself to have a cheat day or two, and then that like helps you mentally too, you know. And then when you get back to it, you're not so like, you know, starved for junk food. You know?
Oh, for sure. Like I would always try to make it to where if I did anything like that, like ate stupid, like I go to the movies way too much anyway. Also, and I don't eat right at the movies ever. Get like 2 of those stupid pizzas, like I'm stupid about it. But whatever I do on the weekend, I want to make sure by like that Tuesday night training, after it's done, I want to like feel and be on point to where I was, or better than I was like before that weekend.
Yep,
like,
totally.
I never let it carry over. Like I can't. That Monday, I don't care how bad I feel. A lot of times I'll go to Sunday night open mat, and nothing worse than being full of crappy food when you go to train. You feel,
oh my God, I hate that.
People talk about, you know, they talk about the, you know, Gracie diet and all this stuff, but dude, like they're onto something with not having indigestion on the mat.
Oh, totally.
Your body doesn't work.
Yeah, I got over that. Like it's been, now I just, as I get used to eating more like consistently all the time on a good diet, I just don't like the way that like bad food makes me feel. Like before, when I would get done with the tournament, the first thing I wanted to do was eat like a cheeseburger and fries, you know. Nowadays it's just like, I think it's going to like taste good, but then I just think about how I'm going to feel afterward, and I'm just like, nowadays I'm more like, I want to eat like some pasta, you know. I like pasta a lot, and that's something that I have to cut when I'm like really dropping weight. So when I want to like eat like a cheat meal, I'm like, I want some good like pasta or something like that, you know. And then I know that I'll enjoy it, but I also will feel good, you know. And then the next day I can still train good and I won't be all like on the mat.
Pasta's not a bad cheat meal, because when you do remove it, like the impact is pretty good on your body, like because you're taking all that salt and all that starch, you know, all the carbs out by removing all that stuff. Like you're going to see pretty dramatic results when you remove that, as opposed to some other stuff which can kind of trick your body. And I don't know, like a lot of people with the sugar and stuff, like that becomes a real slippery slope, because it's one of like the biggest addictions apparently, is sugar.
It is. Yeah, it's one of the hardest things to cut out too.
Oh yeah.
My CrossFit coach, I want to get to the point where I'm disciplined enough to eat like he does. Like train with Coach Greg Amundsen, and when you see him, he's just like the leanest guy, and he can, you know, run like a cheetah and swim and jump and lift whatever, and you're just like, whoa. But he's just like constantly on he does the paleo zone diet, and he weighs and measures all his food and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, you know, maybe for Worlds next year. And then if I was eating like that, I wonder if maybe I could go back to lightweight or something. You know, I'm not close to the idea of doing like lightweight again, but I don't want to do those cuts like I used to do, where it was just like I would get there, I just can't wait for the tournament to be over. You know, it's like you're never going to have a good performance if you're not looking forward to being on the mat. You're looking forward to the whole thing just being done. You know.
What kind of parallels do you think there would be? So if you were to go to this full diet, like paleo zone, or even like a keto diet or something like that, which is different, but obviously it's also another extreme, right?
That sounds interesting too. That sounds like something that I wanted to, I'm afraid to like experiment with something that I'm not 100% sure with, you know, but that keto one sounds like something interesting.
I've seen a lot of athletes get into it and they swear by it, but you see a lot that are totally opposed to it. So, I mean, what most of the guys that are into any of these diets are saying is basically like, just do what works for your body. But again, like if your CrossFit coach is able to do that particular diet, and I mean, he clearly sounds like he has pretty damn good genes anyway.
Yeah.
But you know, how would the CrossFit training he does to do what he does, like is there a parallel with the Jiu Jitsu stuff? Like could you get the same output or better from the amount of Jiu Jitsu you have to do to really get up there and, you know, be a world champion at lightweight? Like that's a substantial amount of training. And like, does it line up with CrossFit? Like, is it a similar amount of work?
I think so. I don't know. I see some of those guys at CrossFit, and it's weird because there's this kind of aversion to CrossFit within the jiu-jitsu like community, which is kind of funny because like CrossFit and jiu-jitsu actually came up together like really close, which is it's actually kind of a cool thing to talk about too, because since we're here like in this academy, is like one of the first places that CrossFit actually was done. I don't think it was in this location, because we were in this location, then we moved to another location, we moved back. But before we were here, the original time we were in another place. This is before I started training. But Greg Glassman used to rent a little part of our academy to do, and that was like where before CrossFit was CrossFit and everything. And so jiu-jitsu, like a lot, if you look up at the original like leaderboard of CrossFit from back when it started, it's Claudio, Garth, Mike Weaver. You can see it up on the CrossFit website to this day. Like their names are up there. There's some like the original CrossFitters. Yeah. And so it came up like kind of together type of a thing, you know? So it's weird how it became this huge thing and it's its own sport. So people see it kind of like as like jiu-jitsu or CrossFit kind of a thing. And I don't see it that way. Like I don't have something against CrossFit. Now you're starting to see more like top jiu-jitsu athletes doing, like I think Thiago Alves and like Vitor Silverio and a lot of the different guys, even Samir and Queixinho, and a lot of these guys are starting to take to CrossFit, and it is something that's really good. And it's the kind of thing that requires a lot of the same kind of things that you need for jiu-jitsu, which is like explosiveness, being able to work constantly and recover quickly, you know, explode and recover, but without 100% relaxing, you know. And you see like certain guys like my CrossFit coaches where they can, like, if I do one CrossFit session, I just feel so like sore the next day, and they get used to it to where they can go like every single day, you know. So, and I wonder if part of that probably does come from like his nutrition and stuff. So if I could get to that point, I mean, I think like if you took him and he decided to change his focus to jiu-jitsu, he would be a problem for a lot of people, I think, because it's that same kind of fitness to where like if you can like do a CrossFit session every single day, you can definitely handle doing like a jiu-jitsu session every day, you know?
I feel like there's like a callus you build for anything you're really doing, right? You know, you're falling, you know, a stuntman falls a lot. If we did one of those falls, even if we did it right, we'd be hurting like hell for a week.
Totally.
And I feel like a lot of the reason people pick CrossFit or jiu-jitsu, and they're like, first of all, like humans are very like, we're very tribal. It's like Raiders or Giant, whatever, right. 49ers, whatever it is. And for us, we're doing jiu-jitsu right on this side. And the majority of people, by the time they're done training jiu-jitsu, they're like, oh my God, my body hurts, I gotta rest. And they're dead. The next day they're dead.
Totally.
And in their head, they're seeing CrossFit and like, they're like, that's a whole other thing that would do at least that to their body.
Right.
So in their mind, they're like, well, I've got my thing that beats the shit out of me and it's better than your thing that beats the shit. Like
totally.
There's no basis for it. They're repeating stuff. A lot of guys just repeat stuff they saw on the internet. Oh, well, what are the top 3 things people that don't do jiu-jitsu? CrossFit people will say those to you. What are the top 3 things for people not to do CrossFit? That's what jiu-jitsu people say about that. It's just, we're very tribal. We have no real basis for it. It's just prejudice.
Yeah. Same as it used to be with martial arts, one versus the other, you know, where the original jiu-jitsu guys didn't like kickboxing or boxers didn't want to do jiu-jitsu, whereas people couldn't, like, now we're finally seeing that you got to break down that wall where they're all, you know, legit in their own way. You know, boxing is good. You need to have boxing to be able to use your jiu-jitsu and MMA. You know, wrestling is good. You know, wrestler guys need to learn jiu-jitsu, and the best of the best guys understand that. You know, we're starting to break down some of that like prejudice, like you're talking about, where I have to be only jiu-jitsu, or, you know.
So like 6 people out of every million are pragmatic and reasonable.
Right.
That's the ratio. It's a shitty ratio. It's a terrible ratio. Most people are fucking horrible.
Definitely.
Like if you look at any social media topic and anything is on there and you look at the arguments, it's just like, I don't even remember what they were talking about.
And the majority of the time it's because people don't want to, they want to believe that, you know, they want to believe, you know, that it's easier to say, like, for say a Taekwondo guy that doesn't want to believe that he's been training Taekwondo for 30 years. And not to say that Taekwondo is bad, but that he could go get in a fight with the guy that's been training jiu-jitsu for 6 months. And if he doesn't know anything on the ground, the guy might just beat him, you know? And so he doesn't want to necessarily believe that. So he wants to make up some excuse for why, you know, but if there were multiple attackers, but if this and that, instead of people should just learn that, like, yeah, maybe you did grow up in the time when jiu-jitsu was enough. You didn't need to know anything else to be, you know, good, even like in MMA or Vale Tudo or whatever. But it's just not that way anymore. And it comes from a laziness of like, I don't want to go and be a white belt again. I don't want to go and put wrestling shoes on. And like, I saw something about Nick Diaz talking the other day about how guys in MMA just don't train boxing. Like they'll train boxing without shoes on. And he thought that was ridiculous. He thought that was like somebody going in to train jiu-jitsu in board shorts and a gi top, where it's just like, if you're going to go train the martial art, just do it the right way, you know, go and learn the martial art, you know, put the shoes on if that's the way that they do it. You know, if you're going to go train Muay Thai, put the Muay Thai shorts on and train the way that they're going to do it. If you're going to do wrestling, and it's just like, we're so good. Like, we're an expert at jiu-jitsu. We have this hard time where we don't want to like be a white belt again. So we want to make up some excuse like, no, my jiu-jitsu's enough. Oh, but if this, oh, but if that. But in reality, it's like, you need to know more than just that,
Yeah, get hit in the face one time, or in Taekwondo get grappled.
Yeah.
The Taekwondo thing I don't get is the not picking their hands up in the standing square, like the horse stance. It looks cool. Right. And I'm pretty sure they can chamber some pretty good energy to hit you in the ribs pretty good if you stand in front of them. Right. And I'm pretty sure they could knock most people off of most horses with those kicks.
Yeah, it made sense back then, right?
But like, there's other stuff. You could wind up on the ground. You could wind up, with someone that may know how to fight. And if they do, if you're going against a boxer, it wouldn't be too foolish to augment your training to include some boxing defense, or at least footwork, or picking your hands up isms.
And even in jiu-jitsu, it's like people get stuck in this thing like, I just don't have good takedowns, or my half guard just isn't good, or I don't like to pass on my knees or whatever, and they get stuck in that. And a lot of people do that from like, usually by the time they're a blue belt, they already have a predisposition to one kind of a game or another. Either they're like a leg, they like to attack the legs, or they like to take down, or they like to pass, or they like to play guard. And a lot of times they'll spend all their time in between that blue belt and the black belt just getting better at what they're already like to do, And then that was the same way for me, as like, when I got to be a black belt, it was when I really started to like learn, then it was like, okay, now I need to, I was always a guard passer. My guard was never what I was really that great at. So I started only training in the guard, and then like, now my next thing is takedowns. Like, I have a couple good takedowns, and you just get this laziness where you're just like, I don't want to do that. Like, I've never been good at that. I don't want to do it. I just want to get better at what I'm already good at. But you have to break through that, because if you could Marcelo was saying this one time, like, if you can get good at passing guard, you can get good at playing guard. If you can get good at playing guard, you can get good at takedowns. If you can get good at passing to the left side, you can get good at passing to the right side. It's just like, every time you come to class, you can't just come and just say, I'm just going to do whatever comes to my mind at the time. You have to consciously say, I'm going to practice only passing to this side. Like, it was the same with the beating bolo for me. It was just something so out of there. I just didn't want to do it. And then I got beating boloed at the Worlds by a guy. His name's Juan from Alianza. I forget what his last name is. A super nice guy, but he beating boloed the shit out of me at the Worlds. And then it was just like, I have to learn this, like, I have to learn so I understand. And now I love beating bolo. I was lucky that Shane Torres, one of my teammates, he's like a beating bolo guy. So I just started going with him. I said, you know what? I'm just only going to beating bolo him, even though he's way better at beating bolo than me. And even though I usually could beat him in training or whatever, he was beating me, and sometimes you lose to a guy that you usually beat, but you have to get over that. And then now I'm beating boloing, and I'm just like I was training with Keishino the other day and trying to beating bolo him and stuff. And like, even to just be able to try to beating bolo Keishino, I was like, whoa. Yeah. It didn't work, but I got close and I was already like, whoa. So you can do it, you just have to get past that laziness,
Yeah, man, I try to focus on like one thing for a couple weeks, and it'll be annoying to my training partners. I know, like for 1 month, I just was in open guard. I just wasn't going to get my guard passed. I was going to give them whatever they gave me. If they took a little step, I'd do a little correction. If they took a big step, I'd hip over, whatever I had to do to correct. And like, I wasn't trying to sweep. I wasn't trying to submit. I just wasn't going to get my guard pass. And like, if it would get annoying to them, I'm like, pass my guard.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Do more. I don't know what to tell you, but like, for me, that was one place where I just wanted to be very like zen. I wanted to be chill in that position where I wanted them to be the one sweating, because because they'll make a mistake. Because like, if you get too aggressive on a guard pass from open guard, it's just one little half a hip escape to the back, to the arm drag, to the single, to some pretty cool stuff from Turtle. And I'm like, well, then I'm gonna generate that, because I'm going to get it to where when they step, like, in seated guard, if you hip off to the side as they kind of try to commit, I was trying to generate that same thing from like on my back, on my side. I'm like, I'm going to get them to mess up. I want to be chill. I'm like, in my head, they're not passing me for sure. I'm confident here. And if they do, I know exactly how to get right back out. Like, so I wanted to do that for a month. I did it for a month, and now like it improved my guard so much because I see now exactly how they fail, the types of passes. And I'm like, even though they're the aggressor, they're trying to be first. It's like, they're sort of not, because I'm leading them towards a system I want them in, because I like those positions. Like, okay, that failed thing, if I can get the elbow past the center line, like I'm in exactly where I go to finish. And it's like a shortcut, and it's just them being overly zealous and not being able to control their frustrations.
I think I take like that old thing that they always say, like position before submission. Like what they're talking about there is like, if you can control a person positionally, that's why I really, really like the change in rules that they did, where there's no stalling now from when you have a perfect backpack or a perfect top mount. And that's the way I think it should be. If you can, especially as a black belt, if you can be a black belt and you can control another black belt that well that they can't escape your top mount, you know, they say it's like easy, like you're stalling. It's like, it's not easy to mount another black belt and not let him escape. Like that's the epitome of control. And if you can control the person that well, there's no other possible outcome other than you're eventually going to make them tap. Even if your submissions aren't that great, you can try it over and over and over again. But if you have really good submissions but a bad control, then you only get to try once. If the person escapes, you lose it. So I take that and I apply it to like other positions too. So like you're saying, like an open guard. If your open guard is really hard to pass, you're eventually going to sweep the person because they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to give up something eventually. But if you have really good sweeps, but your guard's easy to pass, then you never get the chance to even try it, you know? So like I fought with my first year at black belt, my first fight at the Worlds was against Michael Longi, who's become a friend of mine since then. I've trained with him last year at Allianz. He's a super nice guy and everything, but I learned so much from fighting him because I always like to pass guard. And he pulled the guard and I just felt lost. Like I didn't have any way to even try to pass his guard. And it was just because he was so comfortable with his toes on the floor, you know, he would just hide every kind of pass that I could try to do just by putting his toes to the floor, like that. So then like, that's how I like to learn. Like I saw him do that. So then afterward, like you were saying, I took a month or more than that, where I was just trying to practice that, where I was just like, you know, I'm not going to let anybody put me in the side mount. If they put me in the side mount, I'm going to roll to that position. I'm going to get comfortable. No matter how hard they smash me here, I'm going to get comfortable here. You know what I mean? And then that helped my guard so much after that. It became like the glue in between all my positions in the guard. But like if you lose everything, I always have that place that I can go to, you know?
Yeah, it's good to be able to have that confidence, that chill factor, that where they're trying to figure out like, well, wait, I thought I was in this position, but this guy isn't phased at all. He's like, why? Like, oh, I'm being set up, and then all of a sudden they start getting tentative. You see them start changing. Like they're like, they go to get a grip, but they're not sure. They pull back. Like it can be a mind fuck, honestly.
Right? Is he setting me up, or what's going on here?
What is this? Why is he chill? But what you said about the mount is true. I think universally, most people's, except for like the elite of the elite and guys that really understand pressure, most people's mounts suck.
Oh, totally. Most people are usually like, they feel more natural in like a side mount than a top mount. And that's why I try to do a lot of like top mount drills. Like I teach a lot of top mount finishes, and I try to do like a lot of drills of keep the person in the top mount, because I feel like if you have a good top mount, it makes your jiu-jitsu overall so much better. Because like the kind of guys that I'm like a real big fan of are like Hodger, and like I'm a fan of a lot of guys, but like Hodger and like Hodolfo, because those guys, they try to mount you and then they try to finish you, you know? So it's a real like procedural, like step by step, gain one position and then don't lose it. And not even like a big position, but just a small position, even if it means my shoulder a little bit farther forward or my foot a little bit farther forward or whatever it is, I don't lose that, you know, and it's because I'm building something. I'm trying to get to that top mount, and it's because I have this confidence that if I get to that top mount, you're not going to get back out again, and I'm going to finish you. So then that takes away this, with a lot of blue belts and purple belts, it's this wishy-washiness. And like, especially with all these new games that I like to do as well, but like beating bolo and all this stuff where it's all about just getting right to the back. So these people prefer to be on the bottom than on the top, and I don't agree with that. I think of jiu-jitsu as a ladder, and the top of the ladder is the top mount. So if I can be on top of you, I'm closer to that top mount than I am if I'm on the bottom. Doesn't mean I might not use my guard to get to the top, but I would always rather be on top than on bottom because I'm trying to get closer. I hate when my students are like almost get the back and then they lose it and they could come on top and get 2 points, but then they just fall back to the bottom again because I'd rather be on the bottom. Now it's just wishy-washiness, you know?
Yeah, I always get on people, my students especially, with things like guard pass drill, where the guy will like just get past the thigh, just get past the knee, and then the guy on the bottom like, oh, you got me. I'm like, no, that's bullshit.
Yeah, fuck that.
You always have one more hip escape. You always have one more hip escape. So like I started just like going back to basics, and I did like a whole like long like warm up of just different hip escape stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, because I saw it was a deficiency. I'm like, you guys don't know how to go side to side. What? Nobody could invert properly. And I'm like, it was just bothering me. And you'd have guys that they just would let the guy immediately go chest to chest on him. They wouldn't even think to start trying to frame their forearms up there. Like there was no hand position. I'm like,
the frame
guys,
is so important, man. That frame, if you can keep that frame and they can't get in between that frame, they're not going to pass you. You know, it's like you guys that are really good at that, even if their jiu-jitsu is not that great, they're good at that. They'll give even a black belt a hard time passing their guard, you know?
Yeah, it's real basic stuff. And I feel like because there's so much stuff out there, there's so many fancy this and chokes and, oh, did you see this on EBI or Metamoros and this one did that. But a lot of, I think the details, the true jiu-jitsu, like everybody's talking like Hodger Gracie does basic or no, he's doing correct jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But a lot of those details are just forgotten, and you're seeing it more pronounced because he's using techniques that are considered part of the fundamentals to finish guys. But if you look at the nuances of how he applies pressure and how he carries himself, his takedowns, everything,
oh yeah,
it's very elegant. It's very detail oriented, and I feel like because there's so many techniques, like they're looking at the flash and they're like they want to do 100 techniques at 1% instead of like the one of the 100%. So.
Totally, and like when you see Hodger, he doesn't only not lose position, but he doesn't lose even a grip. Like in that fight with Boucher, I saw that grip from the feet, and he had that grip dominated so well on his wrist. I'm like, I bet you he could pull guard right now because that grip is going to keep him safe, you know? And then I was like, but he probably won't because he doesn't want to end up underneath Boucher and end up having Boucher. And then he did. And then if you watch that, he doesn't let that grip go until he switches it to the other hand. Yep. And then he switches it back, and then it lets go. When he lets go of it for good, he only lets go of it to go right to the collar. So he's like, you know, so many people are just this wish-wash. They want to hold something, and then, you know, as soon as somebody puts a little, then they just let it go and they go to something else. He was just like, you know, didn't even not only lose position, but he didn't lose that grip until he went right to the neck, you know?
Yeah, you got a lot of guys like, well, they'll learn a technique or they'll learn some position or whatever, a submission, whatever it is. And then they'll see there's 10 steps and they'll go 1, 4, 7, 10. Look how athletic I am. Look how fast I did it. But
Yeah.
like they didn't, like they got to the end result, but it's because they were drilling with their other blue belt or purple belt friend, and they didn't take the time like, oh, there's a reason we're here. We're hipping this way because he's going to, okay, now to secure the head this way and use your head as pressure on this other, like there's so many different steps, and they're there for a reason, but
Totally.
people like to skip them because look how fast and pretty I can make this move when the guy doesn't know it. But as soon as he learns it, those details mattered. And now you're going to get swept because you didn't sit there and follow the recipe properly.
Totally. Once I got to black belt, I finally started to get like a lot of the basic moves to work. Whereas like when I was purple and brown and stuff, I was doing these like fancy moves. And not to say that I don't do fancy moves now, but I can get the basic ones to work again because my technique is so much more solid, you know? And you train with like Master Claudio. I'll train with him on Saturday and he'll still make me tap. You know, it's like, I'm like, dude, like how? And he doesn't do anything new, just the same thing he always showed to me, you know, just arms under, knees on the ground, super tight, you know, but he doesn't go for one thing and then a little bit of resistance, switch to another thing and switch to another. He just keeps shoving that same thing down your throat until he gets it, you know, and he's not going to let you out. If he gets you into the side mount, you know he's going to Kimura you, but he's just not going to let you out. You know it's coming, but you just can't stop it, you know? And teaching helps with that so much. Like, and like I've been teaching now for almost 12 years here in the academy, and like if you can teach a technique to a 3.5-year-old, you understand it so much more than, you know. And now I'm starting to teach even more like complex moves to the kids, and it's helping my game so much to fully understand like exactly what movement makes that happen. And you know, sometimes you're doing it right already, but you don't realize until you have to show someone else how to do it exactly what you're doing. And then once you know, then you're so much more deliberate with that when you go to do it yourself, you know.
Yeah, I feel like through drilling moves and actually doing them and executing them under pressure. And you learn how they work, but teaching them and you learn like why. And that's like much harder to answer. And for a lot of people in jiu-jitsu, they just never arrive at why. They never think of why. They just do stuff. And being deliberate and having that same grip the entire match. And everything's purposeful. There's a reason that that grip was done deliberately, and it was hand over the collar at the certain time, at the right time. Yeah. And it's really easy. Like you said, the things we learn at blue belt to black belt, it's like, yeah, I'm good at this, this, and this, and that's all I'm going to do. But like, that's not even jiu-jitsu, because it's like the right submission that you have to force. Like if you get something, but you had to force it either by another physical attribute. And I always consider like physical attributes, like, so like there's the flexible guy, there's a fast guy, there's a strong guy, there's the tall dude. And like, if you have to like overly rely on one of those individual attributes more than one to force a move that is obviously not right in front of you, it's like, I don't think it's even jiu-jitsu. No. Like the move that's like right there, that everything is led to exactly this, like that's the right submission. And I think like that's always been the idea of what jiu-jitsu was, and efficiency and your whole body versus a joint or an artery or something. Totally. But a lot of it's just kind of gimme.
That's where you see like a Hodger where he does this choke that's just so basic that everyone knows is coming, and he can still get it to work on a guy like Buchecha. It's like, that's just the epitome of not overcomplicating your game, you know, where people just want to like trick somebody into making them hand, you know. And to me, it's like you need to have the control to like, where if you see like a Hodger who mounts everybody and chokes them from the mount, that's just because his technique is so good that he doesn't have to do a double attack trick to a spinning front flip to be able to, you know, trick the guy into letting him do it. He just controls the guy so well, so procedurally that he can just do what everyone knows is coming and still get it to work. And that's why there's like also people get angry sometimes when you're training and like the person will keep doing the same thing over and over against you, you know, like finish you the same way over and over again. And to me, it's like, that's a good thing. Like we had a guy that used to train with us, Clint, who's Jake Shields' brother, and he's used to just do the same thing to everybody. It could be like your first day as a white belt, or you could be a black belt, and he would do the same thing. He would just come and he would just smash you and finish you the same way over and over and over again. And he just had so much confidence in that one thing because he knew he didn't overcomplicate his game. He just knew it was going to work, you know? And that to me is like, it's a good thing if you can do that. It's like, dude, if you're that good that you can keep getting the same person with the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, that's not you being like a dick. That just means that your jiu-jitsu is really good. You know,
you're doing your partners a favor more than not, because the ones that learn how to defend it are going to have a really substantial skill. They're going to understand that technique really well. Or they're just going to be better overall. Like you have to get beat. Like there has to be somebody better than you. There has to be somebody that challenges you, and you can't avoid those guys. You have to like double down and be like, no, that's why we're doing this. Like you have to break through. You have to, you know what I'm saying? Like you have to, whatever that is, like you got to take it and grow from it.
Yeah, people hold themselves back so much with their attitudes in training. Like they have the kind of guys that are going to be the best training for them, and they don't want to train together because they feel this like competition in between each other, or they don't want to train with the guy that's going to smash them, or the guy's holding you in the top mount and not trying to finish you, and you're just stalling. It's like, no, you need to be able to get out. Or like if the guy's doing something to you, oh, but he was mean to me. It's like, well, is it legal? Would he gotten DQ'd in the tournament?
It's fight school.
No, yeah. Then stop whining and just fucking train, you know?
It's a mean job. It's fight school. It's the last honest job. I feel like jiu-jitsu is like the last honest job. Like right. where people fit into the academy, where people fit into everything. Like there's all different sort of, you know, they're not like social classes, but like roles everybody plays. Totally. The belt system helps, but really the performance on the mat is really what shows. Because if there's a discrepancy in performance and belt, like nature happens. Mm-hmm, totally. And everyone just knows.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I hate when people fight for like a belt that it's like, you should just want whatever your master thinks that you deserve, you know, and you shouldn't want to have to cry for a belt, you know. It's like, if you really think that you're the best of the best or whatever, and you need another belt, then go and compete and prove it. And if you're not competing, then just don't worry about what belt you're at so much, because you're going to get to that black belt eventually. It's going to take a certain amount of time, and once you're there, you're going to be there for the rest of your life. So you should just enjoy all those other belts until you get there, you know, because it seems like a long time at the time until you're a black belt, you know, and then you're like, whoa, I've already almost been at a black belt as long as I was at all those belts together, you know?
Yeah, I mean, for the guys that we had promotions in my academy a couple weeks ago. And, most people seem to take it pretty well by now. We only do them like once or twice a year, like the summer, and then like kind of a winter party where everybody gets together. I came up with like, it was random kind of. So I was, so you just get a belt one day. Overall people handle it better. I liked how they went this year. No one really, there was no real like, this person, this or this. And no one really came up and said anything really. But I feel like the opportunity is there to go and take them. Like there's the competitions. You see the people that go out there and just, they don't ask for things. They just take them.
Exactly.
They buzzsaw through stuff. We got, Dave Mitchell, man, like the jiu-jitsu one, not MMA guy. He's over at our gym, man.
He's tough, man.
He is, and he'll fight you. Like even if he's outmatched technically or on size, like he will fight you. He keeps coming and coming and coming, and he's went through one or two of the belts like faster than some of the guys that you'd see, but like he's earning it, and he's beating people up at all of those levels. So it's like you have this model, and like look at guys like BJ Penn. He goes black belt in 4 years or something. Clearly there's something to that. He didn't buy it, I promise.
Yeah.
Like he went and became a legend. So like if it's that important to you, like know your personality, and then look at yourself. Like, should you just calm down and take a breath, or like do you want to go and take it? Because like I've never, I don't know, asking for the belt thing is always creepy to me. It's just weird.
Yeah.
I never got it. I'm 1 year now as a black belt, and like since I got my black belt, I'm like, I don't want to be one of the old fat ones, like that just like it doesn't roll with the students. Like you've seen it, like you go on Bullshido or you go on Reddit or whatever, you hear horror stories. So I started like going to every seminar, like every place that had hard training I could find. Like I was just over at Robert Drysdale's like a week or two ago, getting lit up. I was over training with Boogeyman in San Diego in the same day as Eduardo Tellez.
Oh, just man. Like Tellez is awesome. I love that guy.
He's the coolest, man. He's such a chill place. I love that gym. Like he goes surfing like right after jiu-jitsu and stuff.
That's awesome. And, gotta stop by and see Tarsus down in San Diego next time you're down there too.
Well, for sure, man. Eduardo's place is dope, man. I went there in the morning, did the podcast, rolled. It was great. And then at night I was like, well, I'm supposed to do Boogeyman 10th Planet, Richie Martinez. And I wasn't going to roll, dude. I was so tired. Like my knee was all stupid. I decided, I was like, I'll get a roll in anyway. He wanted to roll. And I was like, dude, I got thrashed by Boogeyman. I'm like, I did not have this kind of energy on me. I was like, the cool part is his offense, like his attacks, like he's got some cool chokes, man. Like I learned stuff just rolling with him for a little bit. Like
just getting beat up on.
Yeah. I just took my ass kicking. It was cool. I wish I had more energy, but dude, he's the coolest guy, man. He's super talented, nicest guy, really cool academy over there. Like Liz Carmouche is like at the front desk. It's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Like she has like her MMA kickboxing stuff she does over there, where she's just chilling there. And I went there. I was like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. I didn't realize who it was at first. I was like, I was like, maybe I should have like made a bigger deal about the introduction or something. But it just didn't register in my head. I had just been on the road for like a day, and I'm like, yeah, that's Liz Carmouche. She was cool as hell. She's super sweet, really nice lady.
That's awesome.
But yeah. Going and I basically what I'm saying is like I wanted to like raise my own level. Like I wanted to be able to go back to my students and be like, yeah, I learned this. Then I applied it in competition. This happened. But I wanted to go and just improve.
Yeah, that's the way. I mean, some people get too stuck and there's this big like new school versus old school type of a thing. And I don't think that there should be new school versus old school. There's just be what works. If it works, then it works, So you should always be looking to do what works, so the basics are never going to stop working. It doesn't matter what new thing comes out, they're never going to not work anymore. It's always going to work. If you have a basic game, then that's never going to stop, but there shouldn't be any hate for the guys that want to do the new thing. The only problem is when people don't want to learn the basics and they want to go straight to whatever's fancy. But if you have a good, strong basic game too, you learn, for me, it was easy because I trained as a kid. So we only learned basics when we were kids, and then now it's like, people have this problem with beating bolo, but for me, it's like beating bolo is just a way for you to sweep. You can come on top into a leg drag and bypass like person's guard completely, or take their back and finish them, so what's wrong with that? It's like, you got to be able to embrace whatever, for me, it's like, I have this natural aversion to kind of like the leg lock type of game and stuff. And now I'm trying to learn that, because it's like, okay, why do I have this aversion to it? Because I'm not good at it. It's something that I didn't grow up learning,
They're scary at first, man. It's like, wait, we were talking about my legs?
Yeah,
what are we saying here? Yeah. It's the same. Well, even berimbolo, like berimbolo, like if you aren't careful with that lead leg, the leg that's sort of like a baseline over your, the seatbelt.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a toe hold. Like if you aren't careful, so like being aware of leg locks, like it feeds all into it. Like I don't know. I feel like back in the day, so. It's a cool story, man. I was over at Valenti Brothers Academy in Miami, and they're building like this whole big like compound and stuff. It's crazy.
That's
but
cool.
They're very like Elio Gracie side, very self defense.
That's cool. Yeah.
They have the strikes and stuff. Like it's that type, but it's jiu-jitsu. They roll, but if you talk about competition jiu-jitsu, they'd be like, oh, you probably should go over here. Like that's not, you wouldn't do it there.
At least they're honest and direct you where you can find it if that's what you want.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Like they have a pretty big following. Like, you look at the classes and like they're packed. Like this is a cool building, like just for jiu-jitsu in Miami Beach. But the cool part that I saw was they were building out a library in the back, like the one they have at Gracie Torrance.
Oh, wow.
But in it, they had these old scrolls. It was like a ring of like, almost like, they looked like Polaroid pictures, but like from the 50s or something. It was something before that. They were like film pieces or whatever. And there was a bunch of them of Elio and Carlos like doing leg locks on each other as like techniques for the curriculum for Gracie Academy. And like there was heel hooks, there was toe holds, knee bars, straight ankle locks from all different positions. So like where the ankle locks or leg locks were like this devil or something for jiu-jitsu came from, I don't know.
Right.
Because I saw actual pictures. I got them on my phone, man, of the original two doing these moves on each other as curriculum for the academy.
And that's just proof that all this stuff that we think so new isn't really that new. There's that old video that just came out of like Elio versus Kimura, and he tries like a beating bolo on Kimura in the middle of it. He doesn't know. I'm sure he didn't call it a beating bolo at the time, obviously, but all those movements are already there. It's like they've all happened at some time. So anybody that says that they invented anything is just their ego trying to. It's cool when you're like an Estima lock where you're the guy that makes it famous and your name gets planted on it and everything, but you didn't invent it. That was already there. And
no, I mean, like we call the choke the darce, but people have been head and arm choking since how long?
Since Greek.
Yeah, since forever. There's probably like statues of that.
Right.
It's crazy talk. It's cool that I mean okay, so a bunch, besides what Eddie's created and what 10th Planet has spun off into, some of those moves, like probably some of that stuff's a little bit original.
Yeah. I mean, totally. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Maybe that's not a blanket statement that you could say, but also, I mean, somebody I'm sure from the closed guard at some point back in the 60s grabbed their leg and pulled it in front of their face and then, go-go plotted somebody. I was like, whoa, what the heck was that? But yeah, definitely Eddie is definitely creative. I'm not trying to take any of his credit away.
Oh, there's for sure innovators out there. I'm just messing around.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Honestly, if you've ever changed a baby, man, babies know the berimbolo from the start, man. Like they can invert just fine. Be like, you're trying to, hey.
Totally. And now I'm starting to, that's another thing that I always kind of had this kind of aversion to. And then now I'm like, why do I have an aversion to that stuff? If it works, it works. Just like, learn it. And now that with the beating bolo going into people putting that twister hook, now I'm really interested in starting to learn more options from that kind of stuff, because you start to beating bolo and then people are thinking about defending their back, and there's so many nice, mean little things that you can do from there without taking the guy's back.
Like vaporizer or something.
Yeah, I don't even know. I really haven't studied Eddie's stuff, and I would like to. I need to look into that. I'm not even sure what the vaporizer is, but I know what a vaporizer is. Maybe that'll.
You probably need that vaporizer after the Eddie Bravo vaporizer.
Yeah, right.
It's what is it? Basically, you wind up in that. I'm going to call it the wrong thing because I don't know the names of all the positions. But you wind up rolling into like kind of a calf slicey heel. It's not. It's like a shin lock toe hold at the same time where you're yanking up on it.
Yeah, that's really good. That one's there for sure, because people are a lot of times aren't thinking about that at all. They're defending their back and you already got that hook in there and that foot's just hanging out there. Might as well, right?
Oh, for sure. Oh man, if you had to say one thing about jiu-jitsu and what it's done for your life, like just in a couple sentences, like how would you just describe jiu-jitsu?
Jiu-jitsu for me is a lifestyle. It's like something that's seeped into every moment of my life, every interaction that I have with anyone, every relationship that I have. It's the thing that I wake up thinking about, that I go to sleep thinking about. I wake up and meditate every morning and put my mantra in my head. It's just something that's changed my life completely. So it's just so much more than an activity or a hobby or a martial art or just anything. It's just something that only someone that's really embraced it 100% can understand what it truly is. So for me, if I had to put one word to it, it would be lifestyle for sure.
Beautiful, man. So where can guys catch up with you online? Do you have a website?
My website is in the works right now. It's going to be nathanmendelsohn.com. I'll make sure that you guys see that when it comes out. It's going to be really cool. Going to have a lot of good stuff up there and techniques and everything. But for now, you can find me on Instagram, which is my name, Nathan Mendelsohn, BJJ, Mendelsohn, BJJ on Instagram. And you can find me, same thing, on Facebook, Nathan Mendelsohn, BJJ.
And you're available for training. You teach over here. You do privates as well over at Cláudio França?
Yes, I do privates here, and I'm willing to come out for seminars and stuff. And you can shoot me an email also, nathanmendelsohnbjj@yahoo.com.
Well, beautiful, man. I think I'm going to go enjoy some of the sun, man. I appreciate the hospitality very much.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Could I give a quick shout out to some sponsors and stuff?
Do it, yeah.
First one, of course, here I got here at the Revivid Sport. Okay, this is something that's really good, and you've been seeing a lot of people using this kind of supplements more in fights and in UFC and everything. The sport version is just straight CBD, so it passes on the USADA drug test and everything, and it's something that I've been noticing a lot. Nowadays, I've been training like 10 days in a row, and some days I'm like, dude, like, when was the last day I rested? Like, I think I just need to rest on principle, but I've been feeling so good just from keeping up on my CBD and other supplements and stuff as well. But so definitely check that out if you guys are suffering from, stress, anxiety, insomnia, or just for recovery and muscle soreness and all that kind of stuff. Another thing that's been helping me a lot is cryotherapy. That's another one of my sponsors, Santa Cruz Cryotherapy. They help me out a lot with that too. And then just to rattle off some of the other ones, I got my clinch gear here.
Nice.
On the mat, Lucky Gi, Cytosport, Nordic Naturals, Thieves, Show the Art, Trick or Treat Studios, Tournament 360, CrossFit Amundsen. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting anybody. Santa Cruz Chiropractic, and I believe that's it. Thieves, if I didn't get Thieves in there. Thanks a lot for the support, everybody, and thanks a lot for having me on.
Likewise. Double shout out endorsement for Revivid. It actually helps with sleep and pain, anxiety too. It's good stuff. It's 50 state legal. Check those guys out. And Nathan Mendelsohn, Cláudio França Jiu Jitsu 2017, Clint Cronin Show, episode 52.
Hey.
Thank you.
De tudo, sentimento bom que me leva pro outro mundo. A vontade de te ver já é maior que tudo. Não existem distâncias no meu novo mundo, tipo coisas da sétima.